In 2002, a band from Los Angeles, California would release their debut album. While initially unsuccessful, following a re-release the next year, it would skyrocket up the charts, reaching the top 10 in 21 countries and becoming one of the best-selling albums of the 2000s. Critical acclaim, world tours, and a Grammy for Best New Artist would follow. Now, 23 years later, the album regularly comes up in discussions for the greatest albums of the 2000s, and even in discussions of the greatest debut albums of all time. This album would inspire a new generation of singers and songwriters to pick up their guitars, write about their relationships, and their impact can still be felt today. I'm of course talking about Songs About Jane by Maroon 5. Now, this album is one of my all-time favorites and was a really formative part of my musical education and my musical development. I would spend hours, literal hours, nights, listening to this album over and over again and picking apart the songs, the melodies, the words, trying to figure out what it all meant, feeling the beats, and really feeling deep inside me that music was something I wanted to do. I cannot overstate how much I love this album, and I cannot overstate how much of an impact it has had on how I live my life today. So what's the deal with Maroon 5? If you've never heard of Maroon 5 before, I'm genuinely impressed. According to Spotify's data, they're the 22nd most listened to act in the world, and the 4th most listened to group, just behind Imagine Dragons, Coldplay, and BTS. No criticism to be found for BTS. Glory to BTS and their amazing fans. Originally formed as a four-piece in 1994 as an indie rock outfit called Car as Flowers, Adam Levine, Jesse Carmichael, Mickey Madden, and Ryan Dusick released their album The Fourth World, which unfortunately didn't take off as they'd hoped. It wasn't until Jesse Valentine joined their group in 2001 that they changed their name to Maroon 5 and things would really start to pick up. And since 2001, they've been going strong. With a few lineup changes, 7 studio albums, and over 120 million record sales, and nearly 30 billion streams. Billion, with a B. They're big. They're a big deal. But public opinion seems to have wavered on them since the heady days of Songs About Jane, accusing them of being sellouts, just changing everything that made them as beloved as they were to acquire the ultimate in mainstream success. Their exciting and funk-influenced debut album is completely abstract and separate from their most popular singles in recent years, other than the fact that Adam Levine's singing on it. But they do seem like they could have been made by 2 different acts. Of course, bands change and morph all the time. You can compare Please Please Me and Abbey Road by the Beatles and be amazed that the same band did I Saw Her Standing There and She's So Heavy. Bands change, people change. But this change seems like too big of a change to ignore. I haven't really listened to much of Maroon 5's newer material. I think I clocked off after their second album to just listen to Queen and They Might Be Giants on a loop until I turned 17. And it really doesn't seem fair to just outright dismiss Maroon 5's newer work as not being very good. So I'm going to do a deep dive on Maroon 5's 7 studio albums and try and answer the ultimate question. Are Maroon 5 bad now? Kinda, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 5.
I listened to all 7 of Maroon 5 studio albums and plotted my thoughts on a graph here. The x-axis here represents each of their studio albums, and the y-axis represents how much the songs made me roll my eyes while I was listening to it. And from this arbitrary data based entirely on me listening to these albums back to back, we can see a sharp decline in quality, at least in my eyes. But I'm clearly not alone in this. As we can see, if we add in data from the review aggregator Metacritic and data from thousands of reviews on Rachel Music, the graph clearly shows a huge dip in reception and review score as Maroon 5 have continued to release albums. People have clearly gone off Maroon 5, and the reviews have gotten worse and worse as time has gone on. But it seems like they're more popular than ever. You don't get to 30 billion streams without doing something right, or connecting with an audience in some way. So how did we get here? How did Maroon 5 go from getting a warm reception to being left out in the cold? Well, let's zoom in on the graph here and see where the biggest decline starts. The release, 2012's Overexposed. For what it's worth, Overexposed isn't a bad album, but it is sort of telling of the direction that Maroon 5 would soon take. It's very pop-heavy, much more electronic, and really reflective of pop sound of the time, like incorporating reggae and electronica, dubstep, and most crucially of all, hip-hop. Now, while Maroon 5 have always said they've been influenced by hip-hop, this is their first foray into the world of rap and hip-hop with their collaboration with Wiz Khalifa on Payphone. Obviously, rap artists collaborating with rock acts isn't a new thing at all in 2012, but you can look back at Run DMC and Aerosmith's collaboration on Walk This Way, and even go back to Grandmaster Flash and the influence he had on acts like Blondie and The Clash in the early 80s. You can look back at all of these collaborations and all of these influences as proof of the relationship between rock and hip-hop, two originally controversial art forms by black musicians railing against societal norms before eventually being co-opted by record labels and gatekeepers to be commodified and sold back to the public in a more polished and radio-friendly way. But since the 2000s and even the early 90s, hip-hop and pop have gone hand in hand, which I think is where we need to admit our first truth about Maroon 5. Maroon 5 are no longer a rock band. They're a pop band. I mean, they've always been radio-friendly, but now they are the radio. The name of this album is also extremely telling, because at this point in Maroon 5's career, Adam Levine was everywhere. From 2010, he was featuring on tracks by Gym Class Heroes, Slash, 50 Cent, and even on the Haiti charity relief single We Are the World for Haiti. But this was only the start of the Levine takeover. Starting in 2011, Adam Levine became a judge and coach on the NBC reality singing show The Voice. Levine was one of 4 judges featured on the show every week. He would coach new singers, bring on new talent, and guide them through the rest of the show, along with his other 3 co-judges, CeeLo Green, Blake Shelton, and of course, one Miss Christina Aguilera. More on her later. This is the bit where I'll have B-roll over it. The Voice was a smash hit, with the season 1 premiere garnering nearly 11.8 million viewers, with around 10 million viewers tuning in each week to watch Levine dole out criticism and praise on singers, week in and week out. This was probably the most attention Adam Levine had received in the public eye, and soon you couldn't walk down the street without being reminded of him. Some people say that his appearance on The Voice kind of reinvigorated Maroon 5's audience after the kind of middling sales of Hands All Over. I quite liked Hands All Over. Misery's a pretty good track. But that's besides the point. And this propelled Adam Levine into mainstream culture. But for Maroon 5, one track would push them further than they'd ever been before. And it all comes back to one of his co-judges. On June 21st, 2011, Maroon 5 would take to the stage the live semi-final performance show on The Voice. Here, they would perform their newest single, Moves Like Jagger, featuring Christina Aguilera. This performance was seen by 12 million people, and soon Moves Like Jagger was one of the most popular songs of the year, hitting #1 on the Billboard Top 100 and remaining in the charts for 49 weeks. Here in the UK, we kind of gave them a bit of a different special treatment. This song peaked at #2 in the charts and remained at #2 for 7 weeks. Every single #1 that overtook it was completely different. It became the second best-selling song of the year, outselling every single #1 that overtook it. To this day, it is the biggest-selling single to never have hit #1 in the charts, a record that it only just took from Wham's Last Christmas. Moves Like Jagger is the second most downloaded song of all time. Yeah, there's a lot of silver medals attached to this song, but that doesn't mean it's not insanely popular and insanely prolific. The reason Maroon 5 are so popular now is that with Adam Levine being plastered everywhere, they had every reason to be. Adam Levine isn't a solo singer. He is primarily in Maroon 5. He doesn't have a solo career outside of features. And with Adam Levine being the top of the world, Maroon 5 were everywhere. Their songs were on TV, all over the radio, in adverts, everywhere, you name it. Every channel on US TV would carry an advert for The Voice, and Adam Levine would be there. And this overexposure made sure that everyone was listening to it. The season 2 premiere of The Voice, by the way, 37.6 million viewers. Adam Levine was a certified celebrity, and Moves Like Jagger was a certified hit. And it was also the first time that Maroon 5 would do something a little different in the studio, which I think goes a long way to explain where we got to now. You see, up until this point, Maroon 5 had been a really insular act, writing their own songs and working with a small team of trusted producers across their first 3 albums. They were chasing their own sound and even outwardly rejected the idea of working outside of the band. But with this release, the band wrote with outside collaborators, Amar Malik, Benny Blanco, and Shellback. From here on out, this would be Maroon 5's modus operandi. Maroondus Operand 5. Collaborations with pop recording producers and songwriters, which becomes extremely clear when you compare the credits of Hands All Over to Overexposed. Hands All Over has 1 producer credited, Mutt Lange. The addition of Shellback and Benny Blanco on the re-release, including Moves Like Jagger. The only writers credited on these tracks are members of the band itself, with 1 additional writing credit on 1 song. Overexposed, on the other hand, has 18 different producers credited, 17 different writers, and this trend only continues across their next album, as you can see from the second graph of my video. I just think graphs are handy. As we can see, the additional production and songwriting input from external contributors has increased dramatically, going from 1 producer credited on Hands All Over to 20 on Red Pill Blues. Just as an aside, the album art for Red Pill Blues is one of the worst album arts I've ever seen in a mainstream act. Like, period. You would have thought that with 20 producers, one of them would have had an either good graphic design, just one of them. I mean, for God's sake, get that Snapchat filter off Adam Levine's face, he's 38 years old. Although arguably, this isn't the weirdest thing that Adam Levine has done on social media. Also interestingly, we can see one other fact from this graph. Adam Levine is the only member of Maroon 5 still actively involved in the songwriting process. Songs About Jane, It Won't Be Soon, and Hands All Over have writing credits for pretty much every single member of the band, even the drummers. But as time has gone on, Jesse Carmichael, James Valentine, and the other members of the band, including PJ Morton, Matt Flynn, Sam Farrar, and ex-band members like Mickey Madden, slowly faded into the background, no longer contributing to the writing of this band's output, which makes me think back on one of my previous points. Maroon 5 aren't a pop band anymore. They're not even a band. They're a pop act. I don't think it's out of line to say that Maroon 5 aren't even a band anymore. You can take a look at the credits for their latest album, Geordie, and see that half of the tracks don't even feature members of Maroon 5 anymore. Matt Flynn is only drumming on 5 of the 12 album tracks. Sam Farrar features on 4 of them. Here's a graph. And this has not done the album any favors whatsoever. I was listening to this album, doing some chores, folding some laundry, and I caught myself on separate occasions out loud saying, "God, this sucks." And of course, collaboration can be a great thing. The only saving graces of the last 2 albums were the features from Megan Thee Stallion, or H.E.R., or Kendrick Lamar, or SZA, who are all too good to be on albums this bad. But for the act themselves, it's been nothing but disappointment. Like, the production is weak, the songs are lifeless, and it's a far cry from the band they used to be. Co-opted by record producers and gatekeepers to be commodified and sold back to the public in a more radio-friendly and profitable way. I obviously don't know what goes on at Maroon 5 HQ, but I can imagine the sheer amount of press coverage and record plugging and promotional material from their record label has really had an impact on the direction the act took. I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but look, Maroon 5 are signed to Interscope Records. Interscope Records are owned by Universal Music Group. Universal Music Group and Universal Studios are now two separate entities, but Vivendi, the company that owns UMG, have a 20% stake in Universal Studios, operating as NBC Universal. The same NBC that broadcasts The Voice. The same NBC that paid Adam Levine an estimated $10 to $12 million for each season of The Voice. And when your bosses pay you $10 million for a season of TV, you best believe you're going to take their advice on which producers to work with, which genres to emulate, and which dead rappers to include on your album. Maybe Maroon 5 could go back to their roots, just work amongst members of the act themselves with a smaller team of trusted producers. They could return to what made them so exciting to me and thousands of others in the first place. If you're getting 30 billion streams in the age of streaming, why would you go back? So maybe the deal with Maroon 5 isn't the acts themselves, it's the powers that be. The labels that control the money and sign the deals, that plug radio spots and pitch to streaming services, that book the Super Bowl halftime shows and sign endorsement deals. The deal, as we've all come to expect for most things, is capitalism. And another thing, they were presumably called Maroon 5 because the band had 5 band members. How can you be a respectable, numerically named band with 6 or 7 members? Maroon 7. They're Maroon 7. Or at least they were until they kicked out Mickey Madden for his domestic abuse charges. Now they're Maroon 6. God. Oh, I knew this would happen. No.